Latest from Hong Kong as a majority of people in Hong Kong support what pro-democracy movement aims to achieve. This is according to a latest survey conducted after the new security law was passed. The law makes secession, subversion, terrorism and collusion with foreign forces punishable with life in prison, but does not define what kind of acts fall in criminal category. The survey was conducted by the Hong Kong Public Opinion Research Institute. It concludes that only 44% of people back the protest movement. It found that nearly 60% of people were opposed to the security law, up from 57% recorded in the month of June. Education experts say that public attitudes shifted after the new security law was implemented. They say that now there are more concerns attached to pro-democracy protests. Demonstrations are far fewer as compared to the second half of 2019. This is because of the COVID-19 related restrictions and impact of the new national security law. Experts also say that police arrests are fueling public anger. On August 20th, Hong Kong police arrested 25 people. This included protesters, activists and a media tycoon. A support for an independent inquiry to look into how police handle demonstrations has also risen. Hong Kong police and government have repeatedly said that they use minimum force. They also claimed time and again that their goal was to restore law and order. Hong Kong's chief executive, Carrie Lam, remains unpopular with 58% of respondents who say she should step down. For more details, let's quickly get in a sense of perspective. For that, we are joined in by our guest, Ryan Kilpatrick, who's joining me live from Hong Kong at this hour, who's a journalist and special correspondent for the LA Times and Washington Post. Let's quickly go across to Ryan. Ryan, thank you for joining our live broadcast right now. Now, how do you assess the results of this survey with regards to China and Carrie Lam's administration in Hong Kong?
Well, you can see from the results of the survey that an even larger majority of people now broadly support the goals of a pro-democracy movement and are opposed to Carrie Lam. They're against the national security law, and a huge majority, now 70%, in fact, the highest yet, support an independent inquiry into police. As you said, there's a bit of a dip in terms of support for the protests, but it's hard to draw a firm line between those two numbers, because the last time this survey was conducted, the question was a bit different, asking about the protests against the extradition law in particular, which is no longer relevant. But assuming there is a bit of a dip, I think it reflects, if anything, a sense of futility attached to the protest now, a sense of pointlessness, at first because of coronavirus distancing regulations, and now because of a national security law, that no people are allowed to gather, protests never get off the ground, there's always a huge police presence and a lot of arrests, that it feels like there's no point to it to a lot of people anymore.
Right. Very rightly said that, there seems to be a point of futility now attached to the protests. However, what the survey has also noted is that people do agree with the aim of the pro-democracy movement. Now, the survey also notes rising public support for an independent inquiry into the police handling of the demonstrations, a topic that the HK police force has been evading persistently. Why so?
Yes, this has been one of the 5 core demands of the protesters for over a year now. It's what turned the movement from something that was just about the extradition bill last year into a broad-ranging movement for social change, for more democracy, and for more accountability for the police, after people saw how they treated protesters, especially exactly 1 year ago today, on August 31st, 2019, the police attack on the Prince Edward MTR station, when they were seen to be sort of aimlessly beating protesters and commuters. So this has been a big demand for a long time. The police have always resisted it, and they can have a lot of influence in government. Carrie Lam has been very resistant towards this. She doesn't want to introduce, this means of more accountability for the police, because giving in to any of the protesters' demands, in her mind, is a sign of weakness, and they have to push back against everything and refuse everything, and that's the only way that they think they can win this.
Right, and coming to the repercussions now, considering the poll indicates rising unhappiness over postponement of the legislative election, are the government's actions expected to impact the elections?
Well, I'd say there's no change expected in that regard. The government is soon going to be launching universal testing for coronavirus in Hong Kong. in which case they'll be over half of the testing centers collecting samples will be polling stations, actually. So this has led to an obvious reflection of the government's priorities, that they said it was unsafe to gather people to vote, but not for this testing, around which there's a lot of suspicions about, for example, sharing DNA data with mainland authorities. So no change expected. There is actually a demonstration planned on that day, on September 6th, when the election was supposed to be held. So it'll be interesting to see how many people turn up for that, despite the threat of immediate police suppression.
Right, but there certainly seems to be rising unhappiness with the administration among the people, and we are going to have to wait and watch and see how that impacts the citizens' choices and impacts the election results. On that note, thank you so much, Ryan, for joining us on this broadcast and sharing your inputs.